groundbreaking program on Return to the Garden, where I was able to deduce and then share a score of profound insights that had never been previously considered, that are germane to our time. We have progressed into Numbers 5, which you might say, well, the garden account is in Bereshith, Genesis 2 and 3. How in the world were you able to transition from Genesis 2 and 3 to Numbers 5 and continue a series called Returning to the Garden? Well, this is because it is religiosity that has held God's people back from him, estranging Jews and Goyim alike from Yahweh. It's the thing that is the most debilitating of all to the relationship, is man's propensity to be religious as opposed to engage in the covenant. The first condition of the covenant is to forego religion, to walk away from Babel. And so there has to be a means to prepare the mortal remnant to return to the garden. You see, one of the profound insights of that series is that we are returning to the garden. So the whole story of what occurred in Eden is germane to our situation now, because over the next 7.5 years, humankind is going to do everything imaginable to destroy life on this planet. And it is only God's intervention on taruw'ah, the 23rd and 24th of September 2033, which is year 6000 Yah, which of course means that Maimonides and the rabbis have the timing off by 197 years, that this horrible period will be cut short such that God can eliminate, incinerate all traces of religion and politics and conspiracy and anti-Semitism that is now choking the life out of our planet. And he's going to restore, terraform the earth back to the conditions of Eden. And there's going to be a very strict protocol put in place as to who can return to the garden. You see, after this occurs on Yom Teruah, with the sacrifice of the red heifer, which is the very essence of what is occurring here in Numbers 5. It's the story of the adulterous woman, but it's the sacrifice of the red heifer that makes it possible for Israel to be purged of religious guilt and return to the garden. And from that moment, which is going to occur on the 24th of September, 2033, Dode as the Messiah and the Son of God, our Savior and King, is going to return with Yahweh on Yom Kippurim, the 2nd of October of 2033, year 6000 Yah. And then we are collectively invited back into the garden on the 7th of October, Kippurim, not Kippurim, but on Sukkah, the time that we are afforded this opportunity to camp out with God. And it is on that day that Eden is reopened. But not everyone will be admitted. You see, the vast preponderance of those who have survived the onslaught that will be brought against this planet over the next 7.5 years are going to be incinerated on taruw'ah. So there's going to be a non-religious, non-political remnant of both Israelites, Yehudim, and Goyim that will be collected and brought to Jerusalem for this sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, purged and tested for whether or not they should be allowed into this replication of Gan Eden, where the entire planet becomes a sheltered and protective garden conducive to life. So, if you recall the last part of the garden narrative was Yahweh saying that humankind would ultimately either return to the dust of the earth, or we're going to be bathed in the ash so that we can return to him. And that's how it ended. And so now I'm explaining how that will transpire. And this story in Numbers 5, is presenting the problem from God's perspective. You see, the adulterous woman has not committed sex with another partner. God's really not into sexual monogamy at all. Everyone that he chose to work with him had multiple wives. So it's not a issue of monogamy. It is a issue of religious infidelity, cheating on the real God with fake gods, such as the nature of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And so this is that narrative. This is the final test and purging that will be applied to the remnant of Israel and even to the gathered Goyim on this day, on taruw'ah, to purge them of their religious guilt so as to prepare them to witness the return of Yahweh with Dod and then re-enter Eden. The testimony in the Torah then reads, so if there are a few to approach this individual who can be redeemed, transformed, and restored, the guilt offering providing restitution will be for those whom the removal of guilt for reconciliation will change and restore, such that they can approach Yahweh. Accordingly, the one acting in the role of priest, in addition to the ram of reconciliations, for the benefit of the relationship, will make amends through the removal and purging of guilt with him and for him. This is Bamidbar, Numbers 5:8. So do you know what God's talking about here? So he's saying that on this day, there's going to be a few people, and it's not talking about 3, but relatively few compared to the 8 billion that there were on this planet as we entered the time of Israel's troubles. Now there are going to be a vastly less number of people. And a select few of those could be 700, 7,000, 70,000. I guess it's even possible it could be 700,000, but I don't think so. I think that somewhere between 7,000 and 70,000 is probably the right number, who are prepared to be redeemed, whose attitude and aptitudes are such that they're not overtly political or religious. They're willing to reacquaint themselves with Yahweh's name and with this important ram, who is the Son of God, Dod. The priest represents Eliah. He will have been conveying the message as one of the 2 witnesses to Israel over the preceding 3.5 years. So there will be a few individuals. They'll be ready to be transformed and restored. They will be ready to return. Shub. And the guilt that still stains their souls will be removed through the process of reconciliation, such that they are changed and restored, Shub, to approach Yahweh. You cannot return to Yahweh while you are still stigmatized and stained by the stench of religion or overt politics or conspiracy or anti-Semitism. If you are any one of those categories, religious, political, conspiratorial, or anti-Semitic, even militant, you have no chance to receive the benefit of this day. Your guilt will not be removed. You will not be restored into fellowship with Yahweh. This is for a select few. Accordingly, the one acting in the role of priest, this will initially be Eliah. Ultimately, as we move from taruw'ah, where this is all transpiring, the day of the herald, with the sacrifice of the body, the bashar of the herald, as the parah, productive bull. And we move to Yom Kippurim. On Yom Kippurim, then Dod is back in the role of high priest, and Elia will be supportive. So accordingly, the one acting in the role of priest, in addition to the ram, so now we have the goat and the ram processing this sacrifice that will be made available by the bull, all on these fulfillment of the final three Mow'ed Miqra'ey. And it's the ram of reconciliations. The day that of reconciliations is Kippurim, which is how this is written, Ha Kippurim. The ram of reconciliations is the object of all of this. Our focus is on him. He is Dod. He is the taruw'ah, the sacrificial lamb of Passover. He is returning on reconciliations. And so that is why this is being done at this time. And it is all for the benefit of the relationship, and it will make amends through the removal and purging of guilt. The sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, the intent of it is to remove and purge guilt through him and for him. A very, very important prophecy. I think it's probably one that most people have bypassed. They have passed over, but it is an exceedingly important foretelling of what's going to happen 7.5 years from now. I hope you'll be one of the beneficiaries if you don't capitalize prior to that. The purpose of all of this maneuvering will be to prepare the reluctant remnant of the children of Israel to survive Yahweh's return and re-enter the garden on Sukkah. Something they have not done, well, mankind has not done for 6 millennia. It is why I have written Yada Yahweh. It's why we will do as Yahweh's request. The only question, will you be among the beneficiaries or in attendance? Well, this is brilliantly scribed. The 2 animals sacrificed to provide reconciliation on Kippurim are a bull and a goat. That's Yada and Elia. The al ram is offered during Pesach. Therefore, by speaking of the role of the one acting as the priest, in addition to the ram of reconciliation, who amends the relationship by offering to remove guilt, Dod will be joining Elia. This would place Elia before the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant and beside Dod with my blood, the blood of the Adamah Parah, the bull, on Kippurim. By acknowledging the ram of Kippurim, we see the Pesach returning after fulfilling Passover on the day of reconciliations. So the very man who predicted in 555 BCE, speaking to Daniel as a scribe, as Gabry'el, God's most courageous and capable man, about his fulfillment of Chag Matzah, Pesach Matzah and Bikurim, in 33 CE, giving us the exact date that he would fulfill this promise. He is now being presented, returning on Yom Kippurim in year 6000 Yah, which is now October 2nd of 2033. So the same man who fulfilled Pesach Matzah and Bikurim will also be the one returning to fulfill Kippurim. This should be noted that Dod, after having fulfilled Pesach Matzah and Bikurim, and he is the one who has made the harvest of shabuw'ah and taruw'ah possible, is processing all of this by way of his bashar, his herald. And he is fully aware that he will return and that they will work together to bring all of this into fruition. Elia and Dod are capitalizing upon what Yahweh arranged during and beyond taruw'ah with the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, this bloody red man of the earth who is a productive bull at this time. Accordingly, the first taruw'ah And now in the presence of the second taruw'ah, that God is saying that the third taruw'ah will have made a special contribution to Israel, lifting up this final remnant. This gift of life will apply to all those who are set apart unto God among the children of Israel. The first taruw'ah, by the way, is Moshe. The second taruw'ah is the great taruw'ah, Dod. And Yada is the third. The idea of God going over and beyond the fifth Miqra'ey, which is taruw'ah, which leads then to Kippurim and to Sukkah, is not only reinforced in this next pronouncement, the very presence of the Adamah Parah and the sacrifice of the bloody red man from the earth who's serving as a fruitful bowl. After taruw'ah, the gleaning demonstrates that Yahweh has gone over and beyond the annual intent of the fifth Miqra'ey to save his people from themselves. So this will be the last opportunity to capitalize. And so now, after mentioning Kippurim, we find the following. Then the entire offer on taruw'ah makes a special contribution to being lifted up and raised as a guilt or as a gift for everyone who is set apart among the children of Israel, for those who enjoy the benefits of the relationship, to approach and who are present with regard to the one who is acting in the role of priest regarding this. And he will continue to exist. Midbar, Numbers 5:9. So just think of where we have come. God has juxtaposed Kippurim, the Ram of Kippurim, the day of reconciliations, and all of this to purge us of guilt, this removal of guilt for the purpose of reconciliations, and to make amends by purging this guilt, which is religious and political guilt, through kafar. And now we're reminded that, yes, this is set up by what occurs on that fifth Mow'ed, that of taruw'ah. And we find taruw'ah in the very next sentence. And the entire offer on taruw'ah is what makes this possible. It's a special contribution so that you can be raised up, and it's being offered as a gift for everyone who is set apart among the children of Israel. Set apart means for these who have been disassociated from that which is common. They are special because they are not overtly religious, overtly political, overtly conspiratorial, or anti-Semitic. They are set apart from all of the rest of the people of the world and brought into Jerusalem to be purged at this moment for this purpose. And God's speaking particularly now of those who have been set apart from the children of Israel. They are being set up to enjoy the benefits of the relationship. They will be able to approach and be present before the one who is acting as the priest regarding all of this. And the one acting as the priest is Elia. The reason it's Elia is that God has designated him as one of the final two witnesses, but also Elia was the one whose fame garnered our attention because 2,888 years prior to this moment, Elia served to excoriate the religiosity and the politics of Israel, and he presided over the sacrifice of a bull to accomplish that. And the proceeding events are going to play out very similarly to what they did way back then. In other words, he's had a dress rehearsal for what's going to transpire. So I'm delighted to see the second reference here now to taruw'ah, which is when so much of this is taking place, with the first being over and above the fifth. Taruw'ah is the fifth of 7 Mow'ed Miqra'ey. And this is because the adulterous woman, representing religious, barely religious, partially religious, guilt by omission rather than commission Israel. We're not talking about purging the Haredim or ultra-Orthodox Jews or any overtly religious Jews or political Jews. This is the Israel that is capable of being saved. And they are being brought back into a relationship with the king as a result of what occurs over and beyond taruw'ah with the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah. So when Yahweh revealed that there would be a special dispensation for the reluctant remnant of Israel on the eve of his return, which occurs 10 days thereafter, the difference between taruw'ah and Kippurim, God is going to arrive in Jerusalem with his beloved son on the day of reconciliations. And I had been curious as to know everyone's fate, and now we have it. They are reconciled. I should say, they aren't much less reconciled as they are saved, but simply afforded an extension on life by being purged of their guilt. It's different if you had previously been part of the harvest because you had accepted the benefits of the covenant by adhering to the conditions of the covenant and receiving those benefits through Dod's sacrifice in the spring Miqra'ey, Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim. But now we're in the fall, and these are the people who have not done that, but still are potential for the benefits of them going forward through this 1,000-year celebration of our return to the garden. So they are the ones being given a second chance, the opportunity to respond differently to Yahweh now that they are in his presence and given this, again, opportunity to re-enter the garden and do better this time. Learn to be observant, learn to engage and make a contribution, learn to listen and respond appropriately, and show that they are responsive and reliable. So clarifying all of this, God said, each person set apart to him to approach him will have chosen to continue to exist. By approaching the one acting in the role of priest who is offering this gift, a person benefits from the relationship, thereby continuing to exist. So that's Bamidbar 5:10. This fabulous introduction brings us to the most misunderstood and never previously applied test for the adulterous woman. But make no mistake, she isn't one, but instead many. And her suitor is the most extraordinary man who ever lived. You see, the awaiting groom who wants his woman back is Dod, and the woman he wants back are his people, the Am family of Yisrael. So Yahweh spoke to Moshe to say, declare this to the children of Yisrael and express in words to them, when branded and stigmatized, the most important person's wife will be seen as untrustworthy and unreliable regarding the relationship with him, uppity, dishonest, and grievously disloyal. Bamidbar, Numbers 5:12. He's speaking of Israel. Israel, when it comes to Dod, is uppity, dishonest, and grievously disloyal. They have shown themselves to be untrustworthy regarding their relationship. They are branded and they are stigmatized. If you were to ask 1,000,000 Jews, you might have one who knows that the groom in this case, the best man for Jews, the former and returning king, the Messiah, the very Son of God, our Savior, is Dod David. They wouldn't know his name is Dod. They wouldn't recognize that Dod is the Messiah. They wouldn't recognize that Dod is the returning king. They wouldn't recognize that Dod fulfilled the spring Miqra'ey, Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim. And so they would be wholly and grievously disloyal. So this treatise on how to return to the Messiah and the king's good graces is being told using the metaphor of an adulterous woman, so that it replicates the condition God condemned in the preamble when he declared that his people had been cheating on him by being religious. It's the very treatise that is presented through the prophet Hosea when Yahweh, prior to declaring his divorce from Israel, asked Hosea to marry a religious prostitute. It's the same story. And even worse than over time, Jews have treated Yahweh deplorably. And they've treated Dowd as bad, if not worse. They erased one of their names, they changed the other one's name, and they have called God by nothing but titles, and they have stripped Dowd of his titles. So a person crawls into bed to sleep with her. He lies down to procreate offspring, but it is concealed from the eyes of her man such that she is detected or undetected for a long while. And yet she's filthy, she's defiled, she's idolatrous. But a witness does not exist against her, so she was not caught, and nor was she seized by Midbar 5:13. Again, we're using the metaphor of cheating on a relationship because rather than loving Yahweh, rather than engaging in a personal, close, attentive, genuine, affectionate relationship with Yahweh, Israel has strayed. Israel has chosen to be religious, and therefore all of Israel's offspring have been stillborn for a very, very long time. And in the case of Israel, Yahweh has been quite clear. There has not been a single Israelite who has been in a position to serve as a witness against the religiosity of the people. And so she was not caught or seized. I read today a post by a man that's got him 4 or 5 really thin books on disproving the prophetic nature of the Christian New Testament. And he said, Christianity makes all its claims that it is predicted and growing out of the Tanakh, the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. And yet that's not true. And so they did a mini version of what would be did the 5 volumes of Twistianity. It's half the length, maybe a quarter of the length of those, same number of volumes, but much smaller. And they, rather than just simply juxtaposing, this is what Yahweh said, they don't even know Yahweh's name, they refer to him as Hashem. They even bring in Hebraic law, Judaic law, into the equation and completely screw up the comparison. But it up to a point, it's a decent effort, and that they recognize that there is no basis for any of the so-called prophetic claims that are made in the Christian New Testament. They're all either backwards fulfilling. In other words, they will claim that this happened without any proof to say, well, that supports this. But, things like virgin birth and claiming that Yeshua said, or that Yahweh through Yeshua spoke of a virgin birth, but he didn't. So they made an effort. I'm not going to denounce their effort, but the sad thing about this group of religious scholars is they only went so far. They didn't just simply say that this is false because every claim made in the Christian New Testament falsifies something that Yahweh said, because they don't even mention Yahweh's name. But the single greatest truth to be unveiled pursuant to a criticism of the Christian New Testament, they never mentioned, which is that Dowd is the actual Messiah and Son of God and Savior, the one who was crucified in 33 CE, that was robbed of his accolades and achievements by Paul to create the myth of Jesus. They didn't go there. See, there was no one that knew the truth. So this has been the case with Israel. God's chosen people have chosen to breed defiant children who continue to be drenched in the filth of their religious and political schemes. That's why God says that parents defile their children to the third and fourth generations in the statement that denounces religion and the first of the two tablets etched in stone. So unfaithful Israel remains dirty and defiled, largely because no one has dared expose or condemn Judaism. And people are afraid to do so because they fear being slandered as an anti-Semite. But you have to represent the name of Yahweh, the Shem of Yahweh, to expose and condemn Judaism as being a fraud. You're actually speaking out on behalf of Yahudem, a name, a Shem that carries both Dod's name and Yahweh's name, and speaking out for Yahweh to condemn Judaism. You're not, in fact, you're doing something that is extraordinarily beneficial for the ethnicity of being Yahud by denouncing the religion of Judaism. But let it be known, rabbis are largely responsible for the proliferation of Christianity. They did not respond correctly when they had already trained Paul to misrepresent the Torah and prophets to perpetuate this myth. And then they foisted another false Messiah on the Jewish people, which brought the hell of Rome upon them. And of course, it's rabbis who sold Talmud stories to Muhammad to create the Quran. So they're guilty in their own demise. And these, when you combine the Jewish influence in Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Marxism, these are the four greatest foes of the Jewish people. So Dod cannot lead them, he cannot save them, he cannot coexist with them. And so they have to be either filtered out and eliminated, and the ones who are salvageable purged. That is what this is all about. Then he will have passed over him a zealous spirit, seeking exclusivity in the relationship, and he will become passionately jealous, desiring the undivided attention of his female companion. But she has defiled and sullied herself. The Bamidbar 5:14. Here, Dod wants Israel back. He's returning as king. He wants his people back, but he doesn't want his people as they are or as they were, because they have been sullied, well, since way before the Exodus. And the Exodus, they were disgusting. And they remain disgusting. Israel, as it currently is disgustingly defiled. So he wants her back, but he doesn't want her back as she is. So something has to happen so that Dod can return as king and have his bride back on Kippurim, so that they can be reconciled in their relationship. But she has defiled herself. She has sullied herself. Speaking of all Israel, the Messiah king definitely wants his people back. Or what's the purpose in him returning? What is he going to be, the king of nobody? But since this cannot occur when Israel remains slathered in the infidelity of religion, remains stigmatized by Marxist progressive politics, Yahweh is presenting the call for Israel to finally come clean after 3,500 years of embittered rebellion. So something and someone is going to have to give, going to have to change, and change radically, Israel. You're going to need to start listening to God and not to your rabbis, not to your politicians. And this individual should come with the female of his, and to the priest, and he should bring a contribution to approach regarding her, a 10th measure of barley flour, without pouring oil on it, and no offering on it of frankincense, because a gift of desire and passion for him is a gift of remembrance, to be mindful of guilt from the liability of religious corruption. Bamidbar, Numbers 5:15. And he should approach with her pursuant to the role of the priest and present her standing to approach the presence of Yahweh. 5:16. Now, the inclusion of barley speaks of Bikurim, suggesting that the best option for Yisrael would be to capitalize on Dod's gift when he fulfilled Pesach and Matzah, such that they are readmitted into the family during Bikurim. Bikurim is the barley harvest. The oil representing the spirit, normally added to the wave offering on Bikurim, however, is to be excluded because the mortal remnant of Israel will have forfeited the benefits of Chag Matzah by this time, such that the returnees are to remain mortal for a time, which is why the oil was now excluded. As for frankincense, it's a fragrant resin that's used to mask the unpleasant odors of the religious stench. And so there will be no covering up for this stench at this time. It must be removed. Further, frankincense was imported into Judea from Arabia and elsewhere, making it a foreign substance. And while it was prescribed for incense during the Mow'ed, by excluding it, Yisrael was going to come clean some other way. There would be no smokescreen, no masking, no covering up the religious corruption. It has to be purged at this time. So Yahweh is going to serve as the officiant as the nuptials progress. For this to occur at this late date, Eliah will oversee the remedy offered by the Adam Parah, this bloody red man of the earth who is a productive bull. And that is why the solution is water and ash. The very thing that was left open at the end and conclusion of the initial foray out of the garden and Yahweh's narrative. We return to it now. The one acting as priest, this is Eliah, should obtain the set-apart water in a clay earthenware vessel. Now, this is telling because if you read the story of Eliah serving to denounce the religiosity and politics of Israel, 2,888 years prior to this moment, he made certain, after denouncing Baal and Asherah, the mother goddess and the Lord, that there would be copious amounts of water that would be taken in earthenware vessels around the funeral pyre for the sacrificed bull before Yahweh would ignite it. And on taruw'ah, as it is being fulfilled, Yahweh is going to release copious amounts of subterranean waters beneath the Temple Mount that will be mixed with the ash of the Adam Parah and used to purge this mortal remnant. And so that is what is being presented here. It is a mere reflection of what once happened previously, but on a vastly grander scale. And the priest, Eliah, will obtain the pulverized ash and dust, the afar, the very word that Yahweh used when describing this potential return of man as we were being escorted out of the garden 6,000 years prior to this date, which, for the benefit of the relationship, will have come to exist within the flooring of the tabernacle, and he will place it as a gift into the water, into the flooring of the tabernacle. Where will the tabernacle be at this very moment, 7.5 years from now? On taruw'ah. Where will the tent of the restoring witness be at that time? I've seen it. I've shared it with you. I've read the story from the prophets. You should all know. The dome of the rock will be gone. Al-aqsa Mosque will be gone. The Temple Mount will be purged of all religiosity. A replica of the tent of the restoring witness will be placed on the Temple Mount, just as it was in Dod's day. The Ark of the Covenant will even be there. And so the sacrificial altar upon which the carcass of the Adamah Parah will be placed, as these waters are released, the flames are ignited, and the ash mixes with that water, will all be from what occurs on the Temple Mount on this day, on taruw'ah, in year 6000 Yah, in preparation for purging the guilt of the adulterous woman of this mortal remnant of Yisrael, so she can witness Dod's return as the ram of reconciliations on the day of reconciliations, Kippurim, and then re-enter the garden on Sukkah. That is what's being prescribed here. You get the picture. So the one asking the priest, Dod, should obtain the set-apart water that's being released under the Temple Mount in a clay earthenware vessel, and the priest will obtain it from the pulverized ash and dust, which, for the benefit of the relationship, has come to exist within the flooring of the tabernacle. This is now the Temple Mount. And he will place it as a gift into the water. Now you know why these stories all fit together like a glove, with God giving us every indication of exactly what's going to happen, where, when, why, and through whom. This story, by the way, is also replicated in the 17th chapter of Yeshaya Isaiah, just as it is explained in Numbers 19. As a matter of fact, after we finish this story, we're going to progress to Numbers 19 and the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah by way of Yeshaya Isaiah 17, where God explains this very process, providing the timing once again. The Afar ash and dust mixed with the waters released under the Temple Mount will be used to test the mortal remnant of Yehudim and even the Goyim that are gathered at this time, to determine whether they can be trusted to re-enter and return to Gan Eden, as the earth has already been restored to this condition. This is taruw'ah, so on taruw'ah it is being restored, but it will have been restored by reconciliations when Dod returns with Yahweh, and certainly by Sukkah when we re-enter the garden. And that is why the narrative presented in the opening book of the Torah and Bereshith, Genesis 3, concluded with a reference to Afar, dust and ash. It's the substance of our return, testing the preparedness of this final remnant. Now, this is further evidence that the replica of the tabernacle of the witness, as I have explained and foretold, will be erected on the Temple Mount in its proper place, eliminating the Dome of the Rock, of course, and that the bull will be burned in proximity to it, just east of it, overlooking the Mount of Olives. This is the same recipe that is prescribed in Bamidbar, Numbers 19. In fact, it is exactly the point that of the proceeding that I have returned here to augment, so that you understand the prophetic portrayal of the Adamah Parah, because it plays such a huge role, as the Adamah Parah is the man from Edom. He is Obed Edom. He is the man dressed in red that saves many at this time. He is the Adamah. He is the Parah. He is the final Zeroah. He is all of these things. And this is all due to the inclusion of Parah. The one acting as the priest, Eliah, will present the woman standing, not bowing down, not diminished in any way, standing before the appearance of Yahweh. The appearance of Yahweh is only 5 days away from this moment. Then he will release the woman's head along with her toxicity, her gall, her venom, her bitterness. Bamidbar Numbers 5:18 in part. It's apparent to the one acting in the role of priest that he is going to be drawing attention to the woman's head and therefore to her inclinations, her thinking, by cupping his head in his hands. It's her thinking that has gone awry. This is what needs to be purged. It's what's in her mind, the toxicity of religious beliefs. And remember, she is, by what we have read in Numbers 15, she's only guilty of omission, not commission. So symbolically then, he will para. He's going to release it. Para, release, remove, along with her toxicity. And in this regard, it is interesting that Rosh can be rendered three different ways: as the head, as the leader, or as the gall, venom, and bitterness. All must be purged for Yisrael's attitude, thinking, and judgment to be restored. But that is where it really gets interesting, because para is a direct cognate of par, bull, and para being productive. This is the productive bull who serves Yisrael at this time as the Adamah para of Numbers 19. Para, which means to release, let loose, and emancipate, reveals, especially in this context, that the par bull who becomes para, productive, contributes to the removal of Yisrael's bitterness and toxicity. That's his job. It is the result of a final yatsa exodus, this one from the continued propensity to be overtly political and religious, which has kept Jews estranged from the Messiah and from Yahweh. As such, par can be seen as exposing and dismissing, uncovering and absolving that which is the result of this, the very purpose of the Adamah Parah sacrifice on taruw'ah. He is dismissing, exposing, uncovering, absolving the religious guilt, so that this remnant is prepared for Yahweh's return with Dode and re-entry into the garden. This all transpires on taruw'ah, the greatest show on earth. And it will be manifest again as the par's blood is used to anoint the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant on Kippurim. Now, addressing the parar's other traits, para is used to describe a shoot or a stem which bears fruit because, well, the Adamah Parah is fruitful, and this is the choder stem, who is also the Etz Dayath, tree of knowledge. He is the leader who is offering freedom. This is designed to call our attention to the choder, of course, the stem, as the Etz Dayath, tree of knowledge, serving as the Zeroah, one cultivating the harvest before becoming the Adamah Parah. Therefore, the very definition of para is modified by adding the suffix to bull, rendering the result productive and fruitful, thereby cultivating offspring through an abundant harvest. It's a lovely way to integrate the benefits of the Zeroah and the Parah, the choder and the Etz Dayath. God is a marvelous storyteller. Par bull is written Perosh. God doesn't miss a trick, I'll tell you. These letters indicate that this will be a man known for his thoughts and his speech. Pe Rosh is a mouth in Paleo Hebrew. And Rosh is a man's head, an observant individual. Ears, head, eyes. Pe Rosh. So the bull is absolutely a man with a mouth and a head. It's an observant man who is quite talkative. The very mouth of God at this time. So he'll be known for his thoughts and his speech. It is also insightful to reveal that para, when inscribed Pe Rosh He, is presented such that you're adding a person standing up, reaching up, pointing up to God, an observant man. This affirms that the Adam of para is human. The Adam of para is not a girly cow. You can stop looking for red heifers. Adama is when it go from Adam to Adama, adds this bloody red nature of this man of the earth. Para expands the nature of the bull to one who is particularly productive and fruitful at this time, purging the guilt of Israel. Just as the Etz becomes Etzah pursuant to the tree of knowledge, so that this individual provides counsel on the entirety of the story that God has presented to us. It's the addition of all of these thoughts, the completion of all of them. And Pe Rosh He just says that this man with a big head and a big mouth is going to be pointing the way to a really big God at this time. This affirms that the Adam of para, as I've said, is human, with all three characteristics depicting aspects of a thoughtful, observant, and talkative man. Therefore, the productive and fruitful bull pursuing the harvest is exceptionally vocal and reasonably intelligent. He's an individual who is pointing the way back to Yahweh at long last. As I say, God's a marvelous storyteller. Now, continuing to explore this amazing pronouncement. It reads, place as a gift on the palm of her hands the sacrificial offering of the Zikaron. The Zikaron is this most memorable of men. The Adam of para is a man. He is making a sacrificial offering. And in this role, he is a Zakaron. Zakar means both man and to remember. And on means all things pertaining to this most memorable of man. Apportioned as the sacrificial gift. His body is given for you. And it's all for kina'ah, exclusivity in the relationship. The covenant is going to be exclusive to those whose God is Yahweh and whose Savior and King is Dod. There will be no room ever again for cheating on God with religions like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, or human contrivances like Marxism and progressive politics, or MAGAs, or conspiracy notions. There is a Nathan gift that is being given by the Adam of para, this productive bull, producing the ash when Yahweh himself ignites the flame, mixed with the waters that he will be releasing from the Temple Mount. And that sacrificial offering will come in collaboration with the most memorable of men, the Zikaron, apportioned as the sacrificial gift, a mincha, for exclusivity in the relationship, kina'ah. And in the hand of the one acting in the role of priest, Elia, they will choose to have the waters of vexing and provoking bitterness, of the curse of harmful consequences. Israel has been bitter towards God. Actually, before the Exodus, but on the Exodus, it became overwhelming. One of the most disagreeable episodes over that 40 years was the waters of Meribah. Speaking of this, of bitterness, where God's people became so irascible, so obnoxious, even God couldn't stand you. And it is this bitterness which needs to be purged. God's not going to spend forevermore with malcontents. He will either be purged of it, and the hateful and harmful consequences of it by the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, or you will be excluded from returning to the garden. There's no reason to go back into the garden with the mindset that got the first man and woman created in God's image expelled from it. This is what must change. And it's the special offering of the most memorable of men, who will be given as a gift at this time, offered through Dode, or offered on behalf of Dode by Elia, so that the waters of vexing and provoking bitterness and the harmful curse can finally be purged. Bamidbar, Numbers 5:18. The curse for Israel and the means to come clean and embrace both Messiah and God are to accept the gift of the Adam of Parah and what he is offering, this Zacharon. He is being apportioned to Israel to attain exclusivity in the relationship, providing reconciliation at this time, purging guilt. The water mixed with ash as a gift from the sacrificial offering on top of the Temple Mount, which is being poured over the palms of her hands. While it is being done, Israel is finally releasing the pungent and bitter waters of Meribah that have been dragged forward all of this time. They are being washed away. The gift is provided by the Zacharon, this most memorable of men. And while Moshe and Dode are by far more important and indeed memorable, Dode is the bridegroom on this occasion, and Moshe has been retired. So this fellow, he's Yada. He's the third Zeroah, the final witness, the herald of the king and the Adam of Parah. He is the sacrifice on this day. He is in the role of the productive bull, lifting away the harmful consequences of religiosity from Yisrael. We'll go forward one more statement and then conclude this program. It's very emotional for me to read through this. My day actually began with my beloved wife in tears because she has completed a song which is to be played at this time. She wrote the song for my funeral as it is all being presented before Yahweh and Dode, with Eliaz, the master of ceremonies, but as this sacrifice of the Adam of Parah finally purges Israel of this mortal remnant of Israel of her guilt. And Yahweh thought, or Leah thought, that it would be appropriate to compose a song for the occasion, and she has. And so for me to go from listening to her song, and it's emotional. Leah's not an emotional woman in particular, and it even had her in tears. And then to read this about this event. It's a lot to process in a day, I'll tell you. So the one acting in the role of priest, our good friend Elia, the goat, he's going to have her swear an oath and make a solemn promise to earnestly affirm the truth regarding herself at this moment in time. He will say to the woman, if a person has not lounged with, and if you have not gone astray, turning away to that which is filthy and defiled under your individual person, then you are released. You're pardoned. You're considered innocent and free from the waters of vexing provocation and bitterness and the curse of harmful consequences. Midbar 5:19. Now, while shakab in this context can denote aimlessly laying around and lounging about, which was Chawah's problem back in the garden, you can't be inert around God. God does not do deadbeats. He's not looking for people who want a sense of entitlement. He wants doers, but doers who are doing what is productive to do. So shakab can also speak of climbing into bed with others, such that the analogy of the listless infidelity and a fractured relationship are both depicted. Of someone not doing what is necessary to make the relationship productive, enjoyable, loving, beneficial, productive. So it's depicting the state of affairs between Dod and Yisrael, as was the condition between Adam and Yahweh and Chawah and Adam back in the garden. This is similar to the presentation of Hosea, where Yisrael is equated to a religious prostitute, prompting God to announce a divorce, which is now being resolved. And as is the case in Hosea, this is something which must be resolved prior to Yahweh returning with Dod for the family reunion to occur on Kippurim. So therefore, this prophetic statement has Yisrael being asked to renew her wedding vows, to become trustworthy again, to become active, to become engaged in the covenant relationship as it was intended. But unfortunately, she's not all that far removed from Chawah at this time, or Miriam, or Miqra'ey, Dod's wife. So a cleanup is required. And that, my friends, is what we have been considering throughout this program. I bid you a good day. We'll pick this up at this time tomorrow. May God bless you all.